We have now come to the time for our environmental sustainability update. Dr. Swift.
Thank you, Madam President and trustees. Before Mr. Lautzana comes up, I wanted to just take a moment, trustees, to share a few words. Mr. Lautzana has been with us almost 6 years in the Ann Arbor Public Schools, and he has leveraged, and we're so grateful, his prior experience in design and construction, in particular 25 years as a licensed architect. And some of you are aware he was a LEED accredited green building professional. It's one of many reasons we were attracted to him when he joined us as executive director of physical properties. Trustees, you may remember that time. Trustee Schmidt has referred to it on occasion. We didn't have much of a physical properties team at that time. We'd come out of the 2008 downturn and had really had to let go of our staff in order to balance the budget. And so it really was Mr. Lautzana and Mr. Rice who partnered up from the beginning to rebuild that entire division. He had a tremendous impact in those early days as the board was preparing for a major bond capital program endeavor. And trustees, you recall there were several years of completing all of those assessments of every building in the district and then really designing the capital program portfolio. And I remember, Mr. Lautzana, you being here at the board and helping us to understand the improvements in student achievement that we could, not only student achievement, but the student experience that we could gain through infrastructure improvements, like improving the lighting, improving HVAC, and so on. We went on in the fall of 2019 on a capital program, a bond campaign, and I remember Mr. Lautzana at the time, Mr. Dimitru, and Mr. Rice, and lots of us being out on that campaign trail, and the result of that effort was the passage of the second largest P-12 school bond in Michigan history and the largest in 25 years. We would not be where we are if it weren't for the efforts of Mr. Lautzana. I'll also give a shout out to his work in support of the Freeman Environmental Education Center and that programming. Some of our trustees did not live through it, but we went through some very change-oriented months around our healthy water and lead in water testing, healthy air through the pandemic, recommissioning all of our systems, enhancement of air filters. The list goes on, and all the work that has been done to ensure that our learning environments are the healthiest they can possibly be. Mr. Lautzana also got to participate on our electric school bus endeavor. We were one of the early pilot districts for electric buses, and I will add that we would not be sitting in this location this evening were it not for the efforts of Mr. Lautzana to bring the idea of this property forward, along with the other properties that the district has needed and acquired. So, but most recently, those of you who know him through his work on environmental sustainability. And trustees, we are among the leading districts, not only in the state, but in Michigan, for having an environmental sustainability framework. I'm very grateful. Trustees Carahero and Gaynor have worked and served on our environmental advisory group, a framework and advisory group. We now have an implementation plan in progress for that framework. And tonight, Mr. Lautzana is bringing forward, and we are the first district in Michigan to have such, but school by school greenhouse gas reports. Those are already up on our website, and Mr. Lautzana is going to share with us a little bit more about that. So we're not going to think of it as a goodbye. I always say, Mr. Lozano, once you're a member of the team, you're always a member of the team. So we'll look for ways to continue to engage with you in this work. Mr. Lozano is coming to share with us not only the greenhouse gas update, which I know the trustees had looked forward to, but trustees, given his leaving the district for his next chapter, I have also asked him to review with us our next steps. I believe you all are familiar with those next steps. I know that I am, but I just want to hear you say it one more time so we have it fresh in our mind. And also, trustees, I do have his post-employment phone number already in my phone, so just need to say that. So I know you will join me not only in welcoming him for this update, but also in honoring his 6 years of service in the Ann Arbor Public Schools. Thank you, Mr. Lozano.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Swift. It's been an honor and a privilege to work at Ann Arbor Public Schools. And good evening, trustees and Ann Arbor Public Schools community. You took me back there a bit to some challenging but rewarding times serving the students and staff of Ann Arbor Public Schools and our community at large. It truly has been a great cabinet team to be a part of. So many wonderful professionals in all the different disciplines supporting the work, and we've made a lot of progress, and there's a lot of great work ahead in the Ann Arbor Public Schools. So I'm just going to review kind of quickly the greenhouse gas inventory. I did bring this to the board a few months ago, but based on some of the feedback, we wanted to take this a little bit further and do some additional calculations. There's so much math here. I was joking with Ms. Minnick. This is right up her alley earlier today when we were on a call. You can slice and dice this a lot of different ways, but what we we kind of took this to the next level, and we'll just jump into the next slides. So just a real quick refresher, in greenhouse gas inventory speak, you talk about scopes of emissions. Scope 1, your direct emissions, that's me driving a car, me heating my house, us burning natural gas for cooking or for heating. Scope 2 is your indirect emissions from purchased electricity. And Scope 3 is kind of the catch-all bucket for everything else. That's things like water usage, disposal, purchased goods and services. These reading glasses have a carbon footprint associated with them. This would be a Scope 3 emission. So we organize the report in that way. And what we're able to measure currently at AAPS are these 6 items that are included in the report: natural gas, transportation fuels, site sequestration. That's kind of fun, working on with some friends in the community on how to calculate that. That's the greenhouse gases that we actually pull out of the atmosphere with our 752, give or take, acres in AAPS. So that's kind of fun to think about that for a minute. Our electricity consumption and our water usage. And so on the website, and you'll see the link there, and all of these links go to the different reports. It was a pretty big Excel file, so we broke it into 3 pieces. There's the kind of district level look, elementary and K-8 schools, and then middle schools, high schools, and other buildings like transportation or administrative buildings. And what we've updated are school-by-school reports, our overall emissions, and we've taken a couple lenses to it that I think are pretty informative: emissions per student and emissions per square foot, in addition to kind of overall emissions of each facility. So I know this is a lot to look at, but I will focus you for these next 4 slides on Skyline High School because it's pretty, you'll notice it's in the red here. This is electricity usage per student. And so Skyline is primarily an electric building. It runs on a geothermal heating and cooling system. So it's mostly an electric building. And that's kind of where a lot of people in sustainability think we need to head, is towards electricity to run our buildings for heating and cooling and for cooking and other things, because with electricity, in theory, that can come from things like solar and wind. Whereas if you're burning natural gas on site for heating, you are generating emissions on site. But if you're doing that with electricity, you are not creating emissions if you get that from an emissions-free source like solar or wind. So you'll see here, Skyline is kind of red. They have a high electricity usage per student. And this is natural gas usage per student. And you'll see Skyline now is green all the way across. They have very low per student natural gas usage because, again, they don't use very much natural gas. It's primarily for water heating and for cooking. So this is electricity usage now, looking at it per square foot. And you'll see the same thing again with Skyline. And the shading is a little bit, a lot to digest, but it brings you, it helps understand all of these numbers. And then the next slide is natural gas usage per square foot. And again, you'll see Skyline is all in the green there. Green is a lower number, red is a higher number. And so they're very low on natural gas usage per square foot, as you would expect, because it's a primarily electric building. And so we also have these school-by-school reports. This is a look at Patton Gill Elementary. I just kind of pulled one out, in part because Patton Gill does have solar. And you'll see at the bottom in green, you'll see the total metric tons of CO2 equivalent emissions year by year going back to 2010, and the emissions per square foot and the emissions per student over time. And this is Pioneer High School. They do have solar, but this is up through the end of fiscal year 2022. Their solar was not active during this time frame. And you'll see the same thing here, electricity, natural gas, water, and then their total emissions at the bottom there. So summing that all up on the next slide, you will see the chart at the top is each year, fiscal year 2010, 2011, running through to fiscal year 2022. And you'll see over that time frame, we are using approximately 10%, we have a 10% lower rate of greenhouse gas emissions overall, and then a little bit great, we've added students in this time frame, so about a 14% reduction on a per student basis, and we have also added some square footage, so about a 12% reduction per square foot. And you'll see that reflected in the chart or the bar graph at the bottom left, where we see the electricity is in, and I'm sorry, the pie chart and the other one don't match the colors, but electricity is green, natural gas is yellow, and then water is a little blue bar. So you'll see 57% of the emissions from the school district come from electricity usage. And that's because we're pulling our electricity from power plants that use things like coal and natural gas and petroleum to fire. And then 39% from natural gas. And a bit of a surprise to me, our bus diesel only accounts for 4% of the school district's greenhouse gas emissions. So all in all, the bus electrification is important, but it's only 4% of the total emissions of the school district. And we look at the next slide. This is a projection looking to 2025. So this has estimates for school year, fiscal year 2023 and 2024. And when the green power purchase is fully active at the school district, we will essentially, and that combined with our solar installations, which are continuing, we will eliminate our greenhouse gas emissions from scope 2 electricity completely by the end of fiscal year 2024, and that will be approximately a 60% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions from that single action, because electricity is far and above our largest source of emissions. There's a lot of work still to do there on the natural gas piece. It doesn't go away nearly as easily as the green power purchase and the solar, but that's an exciting thing to look forward to. So Dr. Swift mentioned I would just talk briefly about a couple next steps. So I just have I'm sorry about the death by PowerPoint here, but trying to be a little bit brief here. I could have multiple slides on each of these, but I'll just talk a little bit at each one. I think one of the things, we talk about reuse. I think that's a really strong conversation in our community right now about the circular economy. The ethic of, having your own water bottle, of reusing things is really strong in our community, and I encourage the district to continue with that. We have some issues with our recycling program that we need to sort out. I think, the composting pilot that's coming soon, hopefully next school year, is really an exciting prospect. And as the city is expanding those services, we can kind of hopefully partner with them and expand the availability of composting, industrial composting for our cafeterias. The School Action Mini Grant Program, where we partnered with the city, was really, I think, a great stepping stone for us in terms of it helps us not only support projects at schools and teachers, and that's all really awesome. It also lifts up and identifies champions at each school. That then we've started to build that email list, if you will, of people who are interested in these topics. Outdoor and nature learning, I can't emphasize enough what an opportunity outdoor education is in the school district. It is to build this classroom is roughly costing $400 a square foot. So if you have a 1,000 square foot classroom, just one classroom, that's nearly $500,000 to build that classroom. We can build wonderful spaces outside for a fraction of that cost. If you ever go by the Westerman preschool, you can check out their natural playscape out there, or the work we did at Ann Arbor Open. We had a playground program. They didn't want swing sets and play structures. They wanted logs and rocks and stuff. And so we built them a natural playscape outside for the same cost as a traditional play structure. It's really wonderful. And just getting outside, taking in fresh air, and it can serve so much for students and teachers in terms of well-being, stress relief, de-escalation of conflict, all of that stuff. And obviously all of the wonderful things in nature to learn from. So I encourage people to continue working on that. Continuing the annual greenhouse gas emissions reporting. It's a lot of data, but we've set sort of the parameters and the calculations. So I'm sure that we have plenty of capable people to continue that. The advisory group is a really wonderful group. We've got a kind of a who's who of local environmental leaders on that advisory group right now, representing the university, a lot of our local nonprofits, the city, the county. So we've got this great group that can not only offer sort of constructive criticism and help us to make our programming better, they can also become a vehicle for partnerships and collaborations and working together. There are a lot of national, state, and local networks and resources that we can continue to tap. One of my favorite is the U.S. Green Building Council Center for Green Schools, a Sustainable Leaders Network that I've been in for a good 15 years now. I've got colleagues all over the country embedded in big and small districts from Boston to San Francisco, Chicago, Grand Rapids, all in this network. And, it's often a lonely place to be the one green person in these school districts. And so this network is really has been monumental in my career. And just whenever, lead and water is a great example. When that all hit here, it was a big deal. And I have a really good friend in Boston Public Schools, Kate. They started their endeavor like a year prior. So I got to learn from her, what are you doing? What's the technology? What's the engineering? Who else can I talk to? And a colleague in Detroit as well. So those networks are really important. We've recently partnered with AmeriCorps Vista. Part of the reason the greenhouse gas inventory got even done was because of that partnership. It's a really awesome program for recent college graduates to complete a year of service, get a stipend, get a write down on their student loans. Marion Martirez is with us through the end of December, so she's still going to be around. And I encourage the district to continue to use that program. There are a lot of federal, state, and local incentives. The federal ones are live now, and it's real money. It's real money for stuff we're already doing. It's money for solar. It's money for building electrification. It's money for energy efficiency. It's money for LED lights. It's money for geothermal. And again, there's a lot of zeros on this money. So I encourage the district to really go out and make sure that you garner all that you can. There's legislation right now in Lansing that would have some enhanced state incentives possibly, and there's also even discussions at the city to use some of their climate millage money for local incentives for the kinds of things that we've been doing. So I got to keep an eye on that. Obviously, the bond program, we have, and I have whole presentations on the sustainability commitments we made in that bond program, but that's really awesome. And part of, you think about who helped support that and how did we get so well funded in our capital side. In part, it was the support of the environmental community got behind that. There were groups that had never endorsed any kind of a school millage or anything like that who endorsed that millage and got us, across the finish line with that huge capital program. And so there's a lot of great stuff in there. And Dr. Swift is absolutely right. It is about carbon. It is about energy. It is about the planet, but it is also about the building occupants and well-being and, just this space as compared to some of the other spaces that we've held these meetings in. You can tell the air quality is better. You can tell the lighting quality is better. And all of that when we talk about, and you'll see NWEA later today, and we're going to talk about percentages. And there are lots of studies that talk about lighting can be up to a 10% swing in student performance on tasks because it impacts your cognitive function. Air quality, when you are in a space that doesn't have enough oxygen in it, your brain literally slows down and you become confused and you can't concentrate. So all of those things, in addition to, our concerns about climate change and all of these other things, all of that's in the bond commitments. And so that's really awesome that that's there. And I encourage everybody to keep an eye on that. And then one last thing, if I were to stay, which I'm not, one of the things that we have a lot of very dedicated staff, teachers, parapros, principals, administrators, who are really excited and passionate about the environment, about sustainability, about climate change and all of that. And right now it's pretty scattershot. It's sort of, I heard Jenny Wilkening's name tonight.
Yeah.
She's awesome over at Pioneer, and there's, this person over here and this person over there. And, there's a lot of people doing a lot of stuff, but there's no organization to it right now. And so if we go to the next slide, one of the models that I've used in the past and that a lot of my colleagues around the country kind of use a model that's similar to this, and really the green team at the school becomes the epicenter of change in that school and in that school community. And how you can sort of support that is, at the district level, you can leverage resources, and different districts would call these different things, but people like curriculum coordinators and teacher learning networks to help develop professional development. I'm on the left side of the slide going down. I was going to put arrows on this, but it just got all full of arrows, so bear with me. So, curriculum coordinators and teacher learning networks can develop things like professional development and curriculum connections for that teacher champion who is supported by the principal. And that green team is full of students who are then impacting their school and their school community. And on the right side, district level staff can help identify resources and build community partners. And for the teacher champion, they can engage with those community partners, and they can also help create volunteer opportunities for parents and other community members. And so that green team becomes the epicenter of activity at that school, and it becomes the agent of change. So if there's a systems change that wants to happen, let's say recycling practice or composting or using less water or enhancing your garden or whatever it might be, anti-idling, in this whole pickup drop-off and everybody's running their cars. The green team becomes your agent of change at that building. And that can be I've seen it and it works, and it's a very powerful model to embed that. It also elevates all of those local champions who are kind of out there on their own right now, and it kind of formalizes them and brings them into district sort of recognition and support. And another way of thinking about this is a challenge, if you will, between schools. This is, again, a model that I've used and some of my friends around the country have used. And you develop small curriculum pieces, and you'll see all of this curriculum connections on the far right here. These already exist. This is not making up new stuff. These are already existing lesson plans in our curriculum that are just, scattershotted around. I mean, my kids are in high school now. I've seen it come across, climate change in 7th grade or solar energy in 5th grade or whatever it is. It's out there already. We just haven't organized it in any kind of cohesive way. And so the way that this has worked for others is to kind of cycle through the year through topics in different areas. So, for instance, fall with recycling and composting with subtopics and curriculum connections around the circular economy, recycling and composting. Winter, when we're going inside more, we're thinking about energy, having connections with climate change, energy conservation, and renewable energy. Spring comes, we're all happy to be getting outside, making connections with gardening, natural systems, and nature experience. And then over the summer, things like camps and other things can engage with other ecological topics like forests, rivers, wetlands, and grasslands. So that's a possible structure for activities that would take that green team through a school year or a calendar year and give a little bit of a focus and organization to it. And again, if there were to be an initiative in gardening, for instance, or in recycling, this gives us an opportunity to implement that systems change in a much more organized and supported way. So with that, I think my last slide is this is the thank you slide for my first environmental sustainability report to the Board of Education in 2018, so about 5 years ago. And I think this really all still holds true. Making these kinds of changes and initiatives is really about the people, the systems that people build, and ultimately the ecology, and defined broadly, the ecology that we can create. So thank you, and that's the last slide.
Mr. Lozano, one thing we want to add at the end here is there was a New York Times opinion piece recently, I'm sure many of you saw it, entitled, "Our Most Important Environmentalists Are 4 Years Old." And I just want to share my deep gratitude that you helped us not only articulate a plan, but you helped us to remember our most important mission, and that is in educating children who will be the guardians of our planet and our future. So thank you for that. It's the icing on the cake of everything that you've done.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lozano, and thank you for all your years of service.